today, the highly anticipated and long-awaited sequel to arguably the first beloved DCEU movie, Wonder Woman 1984, graced HBO Max on Christmas Day. Since then, a lot has changed, including my commentary style on my channel. And since Wonder Woman 1984 is technically a Christmas movie, I mean, it did have that one Christmas scene, so I'm technically not wrong here. I thought, why not revisit this movie 1 year later to give it the review that it truly deserves? Well, after a year of waiting to rewatch this movie and genuinely not thinking about it for a year, it sucks to say that Wonder Woman 1984 is worse than I remember. The best way to describe Wonder Woman 1984 is that this movie feels like it goes out of its way to be disappointing. Nearly every single decision or concept that's thrown at the wall doesn't stick the landing at all. Wonder Woman 1984 goes against Diana's character growth in Wonder Woman 1, has a highly noticeable lack of action, barely gives Barbara enough screen time to buy into her storyline of becoming Cheetah, makes morally disgusting decisions, and tries to get you to buy into ridiculous ideas like unexplained magic being in the DCEU, which simply fall flat. Collectively, the issues still prevent you from having any positive emotions or thoughts if you choose to waste your time rewatching this movie a year after its release. With all of this being said, let's grab our lassos of truth and soar into the sky because it's time to discuss Wonder Woman 1984 1 year later. Love, the one thing that keeps Diana motivated in Wonder Woman, the one thing that allows Diana to choose to see the good in humanity throughout her multiple appearances in the DCEU, the one thing that helped Diana defeat Ares at the end of Wonder Woman. For Diana, love gives her strength, and as Diana beautifully puts it,
that only love can truly save the world.
Unfortunately, this powerful trait and beautifully said quote are suddenly transformed into Diana's weakness for the sake of the incredibly ridiculous narrative, nothing good comes from lies. Whether it's intentional or not, Wonder Woman 1984 comes off as trying to unnecessarily humble Diana Prince again. This movie attempts to blind Diana with fake love because at its core, it wants Diana to experience losing love again? As I rewatched this movie, I began to rapidly realize that Diana isn't learning anything different than what she learned towards the end of Wonder Woman. There really isn't any new character growth or any pivotal parts of this movie that should carry over towards the next Wonder Woman movie. Sure, you can make the argument that Diana learned that she should be careful what she wishes for, but how often do you think a magical dreamstone is going to grant her a wish while having some monkey paw effect again? I would like to think that they're not gonna do that again, considering the backlash that this movie received after its release. Plus, gaining Steve back temporarily and then losing him again doesn't enforce the principle that this movie sets out to enforce. Nothing good comes from lies. Steve's presence in this movie enforces an entirely different lesson for Diana. In fact, that lesson is a lesson she already learned during Wonder Woman. She has to let go of the past and continue to push forward because she has a bigger purpose in life. She even says this beautiful quote after acknowledging that only love can save the world towards the end of Wonder Woman.
I fight and I give. For the world I know can be.
So this emotional roller coaster that Diana is on throughout the entirety of Wonder Woman 1984 feels essentially pointless, and that could have changed if the ending was different. Let's look at why Steve's pivotal decision-making moment in the first Wonder Woman movie is far better than Steve's decision-making moment in Wonder Woman 1984. On the surface level, yes, both movies contain the same thing. Steve has this moment during the climax of both movies. However, in Wonder Woman, Steve's decision is about him and his arc. It's about his growth throughout Wonder Woman, leading to him willingly sacrificing himself to ensure that Diana can save the world. It's not about him taking away a moment from Diana. That is his moment, and both Diana and us as an audience have to be okay with it. We have to be okay with losing a character that we all loved because the man willingly chose to be a hero. As if that isn't beautiful enough, this flashback scene adds an extra layer of depth to this pivotal moment.
It has to be me. It has to be me. I could save today. You could save the world.
It's heartbreaking and it's tough to watch, especially when you watch the movie for the first time ever. But at the same time, Steve followed his heart and did what so many people would be afraid to do. By him doing that, and by Diana having that flashback during the heat of her battle with Ares, it allowed Diana to channel all of the things she learned throughout the movie to defeat Ares and finally save the world. She fulfilled Steve's one hope, which is that his sacrifice would hopefully lead to her being able to save the world, and it did. That's why that moment works so much in the first Wonder Woman movie. In the case of Wonder Woman 1984, Steve's choice of forcing Diana to renounce her wish takes that moment away from Diana. It shows a lack of initiative, a lack of growth, and a lack of willingness from Diana when we all know she's been in a very similar experience. Wonder Woman 1984 should have led to Diana making the choice to renounce her wish on her own terms and her wanting to do it for the sake of saving the world again. Think about it. If Diana was the one to say, Steve, I love you and I've missed you for so many years, but I have to let you go. I have to do this because I have to save the world. I can't let the world go on like this. If I don't renounce my wish, then I'm failing the world, and that is something I can't do because I have to fight for the world that I know can be. That moment would have tied both everything she's learned in the first Wonder Woman and everything she's experienced in Wonder Woman 1984 together. It would have shown that she learned from Steve's choice many years ago and that she knew she had to choose to be a hero, not be forced into being a hero again. On top of that, imagine if during that same moment they flashed back to Wonder Woman and showed us her flashback with Steve to draw parallels. That would have been impactful, far more emotional, and the better route to go with. And it would have shown that she learned the core principle that this movie has been trying to enforce throughout the entirety of its duration. Nothing good comes from lies. While we're discussing Steve's impact in both of the Wonder Woman films, it's only right that we discuss the questionable morality behind Steve's grand return in this movie. In my original Wonder Woman 1984 review, I didn't discuss the morality behind Steve's return because truthfully, I didn't know how to verbalize my opinions about it. Thankfully, I've grown as a YouTuber in the last year and I can hopefully give this discussion some justice now. As much as I love Steve Trevor in both Wonder Woman films, in my heart I know that he had no right being in Wonder Woman 1984. I understand that the whole mindset of bringing Steve back was likely due to the amount of love Steve received post Wonder Woman. However, I think this falls under the rare case of a comic book character not needing to be brought back to life again. The moment Steve chose to save the world, that was the moment his arc ended. There shouldn't have been another story including Steve past that point. By bringing him back both for the fans and for the sake of trying to make Wonder Woman 1984 a better experience, you remove that impact. It removes the coping we had to deal with as both Diana and us as an audience had to say goodbye to Steve while he runs off to be the hero this world didn't deserve. It removes the inner motivation Diana had at the end of the first Wonder Woman movie where she spoke about wanting to fight for the good in the world. It removes all that significance. Secondly, it's one thing to bring a character back to life who didn't need to be brought to life, but it's another thing to do it in the fashion that Wonder Woman 1984 did it. For those of you who don't remember, Steve isn't actually Steve. This movie doesn't necessarily explain the process behind his quote-unquote revival, but the reality of what actually happens is genuinely disgusting. Steve's soul took over another man's body. I'm not too sure how it works logically, but one thing is 100% certain: Steve is not in his own body. Steve takes over another man's body, which Diana is perfectly okay with, to the point where she seemingly has sex with Steve, who is in another man's body. On top of this, she even makes fun of the man's apartment and judges the clothes this guy owns. How did anybody think that this was okay? This is just downright ridiculous and straight up awful. It doesn't come off as quirky, nor do any of the attempts at trying to make this decision come off as a lighthearted decision. Just to refresh everybody, this movie does the following: make fun of the guy's clothes, make fun of the guy's apartment, hint at Diana having sex with Steve in another man's body, and doubles down on this decision during the final scene of this movie. In case you don't remember the Christmas scene, Diana's confronted by the same man again, but she doesn't see Steve. She sees the man's face, and they make small talk as he wears an outfit that Diana loved, but Steve hated. None of this is cute, none of this is quirky, and all of this just makes the whole concept of Steve being in this movie feel like a premature idea that was never explored in various ways before deciding on this decision. It feels like they were so caught up on the idea of let's bring Steve back, I don't care how we get it done, but it has to get done, that they forgot how to make it happen in a beautiful, meaningful way. Rather than trying to find how to achieve this in a way that feels like it was done by the same people who made Wonder Woman, it feels like an entirely different group of people came in and made this lackluster and morally disgusting decision. Unfortunately, even after a year of time going by, this creative decision still sticks out like a sore thumb and still doesn't sit well with me. It should go without saying, but Steve deserved better. There were better ways to go about bringing Steve back, even if it was only in flashbacks. Now, considering Wonder Woman 1984 has two villains, I'm going to discuss these villains the same way I discussed Gar and Raven in my Titan Season 3 review, discussing one after another. First up, we have Cheetah, and I'm just going to be straight up with all of you. Cheetah probably should have never been in Wonder Woman 1984. The core reason being, Cheetah doesn't get enough screen time throughout the movie. There isn't enough time to buy into the idea of her becoming Cheetah, let alone getting a viewer to truly care about her storyline. In fact, Barbara doesn't even become Cheetah until the 2 hours and 6 minutes mark. Yes, I specifically wrote this down because I had to point this out for one major reason. A big part of this movie's marketing was directed at Cheetah. They were making a big deal about how Cheetah was going to look great and how she was going to play a pivotal role, which was pushing Diana to her limits. Instead, Cheetah's only in this movie for about 7 minutes out of what is a 2.5 hour long movie that actually feels like it runs for an extra hour on top. Yes, Wonder Woman 1984 still feels that long, and it is rough. Outside of the lack of Cheetah, if we're being honest, Barbara would have likely been Diana's friend if this wasn't a superhero movie. If this was quite literally any other movie genre, Diana would have probably helped Barbara find a new style of life, built a loving friendship that wouldn't have made Barbara jealous, and probably would have helped her get newfound confidence, but that isn't the case. This brings me to Barbara's wish, which is wanting to be like Diana. For reference, it isn't that ridiculous, at least it's not ridiculous from Barbara's perspective. Both of the Wonder Woman films paint Diana as this woman who has it all and this overly beautiful woman that gets the attention of mostly every man, even if Diana doesn't want the attention. What is ridiculous is trying to get us to buy into the idea that this overly nerdy, clumsy, and goofy character can suddenly be loved by literally everybody overnight because of a magical wish? Tell me that Barbara wasn't overly nerdy, clumsy, and goofy just for the sake of laughs and she was just this shy, reserved woman who wished she was like Diana. Then I'd buy into the Dreamstone's method of giving her new confidence, style, and people people suddenly caring about Barbara's existence, which eventually leads to her becoming a villain, I guess? At least I think I'd buy into that. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't buy into how Barbara's life was changed after her wish, and it's because of how this movie introduces us to her. I just don't buy into Barbara lowering a shirt and taking off a skirt that has pants under it and people suddenly being like, oh wow, Barbara, you look phenomenal now. I don't buy into Barbara suddenly getting brand new reflexes. It's not like she got bit by a spider that suddenly gave her that type of power. Also, how can I forget the most egregious trait that was given to her? Apparently, if you're not funny and you want to be funny, you need a magical dreamstone to make it happen. At least according to Wonder Woman 1984. Then there's Barbara suddenly wanting to become an apex predator a year later, and I have a question about this. Why? Why did you want to become an apex predator? She was already powerful and was already more powerful than Diana during the late portion of the movie since, you know, Diana became human for a bit. They even fought and she kicked Diana's ass, so why does she want more power? She got everything she wanted. She got the attention. She got a new style. She got powers and she became more powerful than Diana. Everything she wanted, she got. There were no other intentions or side stories to Barbara that added depth to her character where you can specifically point out and be like, oh, this is why she wanted more power. It just comes out of nowhere. You're just kind of like, okay, I guess. And by the end of the movie, you're essentially thinking to yourself, let's just wrap it up already so we can go home. Also, the fight with Diana is incredibly lackluster, especially after they hyped up how powerful the Golden Eagle armor was. Not only did Cheetah destroy that armor in literal seconds, but the fight ended in only a few minutes. There is no hype moment that gets built up like Diana giving her speech to Ares before she kicks his ass. You're more so relieved that Wonder Woman 1984 is wrapping up and finally getting to the point of ending than you're hyped for this fight like you should be. All of these problems come back to terrible storytelling and a lack of screen time. I understand that they felt like Cheetah might have not been a compelling enough villain to stand on her own, just like we see Batman villains teaming up in various pieces of Batman media. However, if you're going to half-ass Cheetah and give us this lackluster result, you were better off doing one of three things. You have the option A, which is not include Cheetah in this movie, B, make Cheetah the only antagonist, and finally C, choose an entirely different villain or group of villains to put against Diana for a movie. All in all, my problem with Cheetah isn't the character herself, it's how the team behind this movie chose to handle Cheetah and the creative route they went with Cheetah, because it simply doesn't work in this movie. As for Max Lord, well, to be honest, I don't know where to begin with Max Lord. On one hand, I don't hate his character, nor do I like his character. I just feel like he's incredibly inconsistent and he has an incredibly unbuyable ending. On the other hand, Pedro Pascal is acting his ass off in Wonder Woman 1984 and is probably the only bright spot in this movie. I guess the safest thing to call him is a middling character that doesn't do much for me. The problem with this character is that his motivations aren't explained well enough for him to be the main villain of this movie. Yes, we know that he wants the Dreamstone, but we don't know why. Yes, it is shown that he was doing a massive amount of research to try and pinpoint the location of the Dreamstone later on in the movie, but it's not shown why he's researching to find it. Beyond a simple one-liner that he tells his son, which is that he's trying to find the power of the wish, there's nothing in this movie that explains his motivations, and it's just weird. It's like there's a piece of the puzzle missing that would make it easier for any viewer to buy into the idea that magic, such as this stone, exists in the DCEU, and it could make things like this storyline a lot more buyable. If that missing piece provided some sort sort of context for Max's motivations and gave Max that extra depth as well, his storyline might have made more sense. Without that context, it's hard to buy into the idea that this businessman knows about some magical stone and that he's somehow one of the only people in the DCEU that is aware of magic hypothetically existing. Don't get me wrong, there is that one side character that Steve, Diana, and Barbara visit to find out more about the Dreamstone, but he's only there to give exposition, so he doesn't count. Now, while it's easy to buy into the idea of a businessman losing his way and being power hungry after getting power such as making wishes come into fruition, I still don't buy into anything in the last act of this movie. I don't buy into Max wanting to bring people's wishes to life. I don't buy Max becoming so obsessive that he tries to talk to the president or steal oil. I don't buy that he even has a conflict with Diana because he quite literally doesn't know about Diana Prince until there's like 40 to 45 minutes left in this movie. I don't buy any of it. And once again, this all comes back to that missing piece in this gigantic mess of a puzzle that is Wonder Woman 1984. It's incredibly frustrating knowing that there are little hints of potential and a small number of ideas within this overly long movie that could have worked if they were executed in a better fashion. The concept or idea that Max Lord is this corrupt businessman who's banking his entire future on this hypothetical stone that grants wishes is interesting. It's an idea that on paper should work because that's a believable storyline. However, when you remove obvious bits and pieces from this storyline, it just comes off as comically bad. Comically bad, that is exactly what I meant to say. You probably thought I was gonna stop after I said comical, and then someone was gonna be smart in the comments section and say, well, it was a comic book movie. No, we're not giving this movie any credit. I refuse. The point I'm trying to make is that Max Lord's arc throughout Wonder Woman 1984 in its entirety is hard to buy. This brings me to what is the cherry on top of my figurative I don't buy it milkshake. The ending of this movie is worse than you remember. It is the most ridiculous thing in the world because even comic book shit can't explain it. Max suddenly cares about his kid being lost and scared in the world that he changed, thus leading him to renouncing his wish, even though he shunned his kid throughout the entirety of this movie. Nope, don't buy it. Diana mumbling in a room as she gives a speech that she claims isn't for Max but is for everybody else in the world to hear, even though there's an awful amount of wind in the room. Nope, don't buy it. Every single person in the world willingly renounces their wish to save the world. Nope, don't buy it. None of it works for me at all. Literally none of it. It's so bad that it's sad. It's not even on the tier of it's so bad that it's good. That's how awful this ending is. As I said, all of this comes back to there being missing pieces of details that would have supported the ideas that this movie was going for. Max could have been a better villain had they explained why he was looking for the stone. The ending should have been a much better fight with Cheetah that surpassed the Ares fight. The final speech should have never been the ending moment for this movie because it wasn't a good nor impactful idea. All of it is so bad and it truly sucks because this is a movie that should have been good. 1 year later, Wonder Woman 1984 still disappoints me. It's not a good movie. It's not a good sequel. It's not anywhere close to as deep as it thinks it is. I genuinely can't emphasize how disappointing it is to me that we got this sequel. Wonder Woman is one of my favorite superhero movies ever, and it genuinely meant a lot to me, so of course I wanted Wonder Woman 1984 to be good. It just disappoints on all fronts, whether it's storytelling, CGI, action, or tone. Quite literally everything doesn't work for me. Honestly, most people would likely feel the same way if they chose to waste their time by rewatching this incredibly disappointing sequel. With that being said, let's end this video on a more positive note. I simply want to thank all of you for this past year. The overwhelming love and support I've gotten on all of my videos this year, especially on my Titan Season 3 review, means so much to me. I do what I can to make content that I'm truly proud of, even if that means I have to get rid of a few videos here and there. Thank you so much. I hope all of you have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. As always, if you enjoy this video, hit that like button. If you really enjoyed this video, hit that sub button. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, write a comment down below. Don't forget to keep it real with peace, love, and positivity.